I need to tell you something that might make your heart race a little. Right now, as you're listening to me, there are invisible forces moving around you. Forces that are not just waiting but actually aching to bring you money. Not tomorrow, not next month, not when you finally deserve it, but right now. The only thing standing between you and an endless stream of cash flowing into your life is a secret that has been deliberately hidden from you. It comes down to 3 simple codes. 3 whispers that the universe is desperately waiting to hear from your lips. I discovered these codes decades ago. I watched them transform paupers into princes, saw desperate men and women speak these words, and within hours, sometimes even minutes, receive checks in the mail, unexpected job offers, sudden gifts, and money appearing from nowhere. But here's what truly breaks my heart. Most people will never speak these codes. They'll go their whole lives working hard, struggling, praying, and begging, never understanding that the universe isn't withholding money from them. The universe is listening, waiting for the right words, the right frequency, the right whisper. And tonight I'm going to give you all 3 codes. Not 1, not 2, but all 3. These are the same codes that changed my life, the same codes that have transformed thousands of my students from poverty to prosperity, sometimes overnight. But I must warn you, these aren't affirmations. They aren't just positive thinking, vision boards, or manifestation tricks. These are actual spiritual laws. Frequencies that rearrange the invisible world around you, the moment you speak them correctly. They've been called forbidden because once you truly understand how they work, you'll realize you've had the power all along. And nobody, no government, no boss, no circumstance, could ever keep money from you again. So, let me ask you something personal. Are you tired? Are you tired of watching other people succeed while you work twice as hard? Are you exhausted from doing everything right and still ending up with empty pockets? Are you sick of the anxiety, the fear, the shame of not having enough? Because if you are, then what I'm about to share with you is going to feel like the moment you've been waiting for your entire life. This isn't theory. It isn't philosophy. This is the actual mechanism, the secret technology of wealth that's been operating since the beginning of time. And you're about to learn how to use it. I want you to understand something fundamental before we go any further. Money isn't what you think it is. You've been taught that you have to chase it, earn it through sweat and sacrifice, and that it only comes to the lucky or the ruthless. But that's the lie that keeps you poor. Money is energy. It's a current like electricity flowing through wires, and it's flowing all around you right this very moment. There is no shortage of it. There never has been. The universe is infinitely abundant. But here's the thing about energy. It only flows where it's invited, where the conditions are right, where the channel is open. You are that channel. You are meant to be a conduit for wealth, a vessel through which prosperity pours into this physical world. But somewhere along the way your channel got blocked. Maybe it was something a parent said when you were 5. Maybe it was a teacher who told you money doesn't grow on trees. Maybe it was a preacher who convinced you that poverty was holy. Whatever it was, these false beliefs created resistance in your channel, and resistance stops the flow. The 3 codes I'm about to give you aren't magic spells. They're tools to remove that resistance, to open your channel so wide that money has no choice but to flood into your life. And I've seen it happen so fast it would make your head spin. Let me tell you about a woman named Margaret who came to me years ago. When she walked into my parlor, I could see the desperation written all over her face. She was a widow with 3 children, hadn't paid rent in 4 months, and the landlord was coming the next day to evict her. She had 17 cents to her name. She sat across from me with tears streaming down her cheeks and said, "I've prayed and prayed, but God isn't listening. I've tried everything." I looked at her gently and said, "Margaret, God isn't deaf. You're speaking the wrong language." I taught her the first code that afternoon, just the first one. I made her practice it until she could say it with absolute conviction, until her whole body relaxed and her face changed. She went home that evening and whispered that code before she went to sleep. The next morning, before the landlord arrived, there was a knock at her door. It was a lawyer. Her uncle, a man she hadn't seen in 20 years, had died and left her $5,000. That was a fortune in 1920s money. The landlord never had to knock. You might say that was coincidence. You might say that was luck. But I've seen this happen hundreds of times. And it's never coincidence. It's law. It's the universe responding to the right frequency, the right vibration, the right whisper. When you align with that frequency, with love, with faith, with the knowing that all things are already working in your favor, you become a magnet for the divine plan. And here's what nobody tells you. You don't need to beg the universe to hear you. You don't need to shout louder or wish harder. The universe isn't deaf. It's already listening. It's been listening since before you opened your mouth. What you need to do is believe that what you've asked for is already yours. You need to act as if. I've seen this play out 1,000 times. A woman walks into my life, shoulders slumped, bills stacked high. She tells me, "I've been praying for money. Why isn't it coming?" And I look at her and I ask, when you pray, do you picture yourself still broke? Do you feel the lack? Do you end your prayer with worry? And she nods. Of course she does, because she's been hoping for money, not claiming it. There's a difference, and it's everything. Hope is tentative. Says maybe, perhaps, if I'm lucky. But faith is absolute. Faith says, it is done. Thank you, I receive. Faith doesn't wait for evidence. It is the evidence. It walks ahead of proof and says, come follow me. So I told her, tonight before you sleep, you thank the universe for the money that's already on its way. You see yourself paying those bills with ease. You feel the relief in your chest. You smile like someone who's already free. And she did. And within the week, I'm not exaggerating, a relative she hadn't spoken to in years sent her a check. No reason, they just felt moved to do it. Now you might say that's luck. But I'll tell you what it really is, alignment. When she stopped vibrating at the frequency of lack, the universe stopped delivering lack. It's that simple, that precise, that unchangeable. And here's where most people get lost in the fog. They say the words, they mouth the affirmations, they write them in journals, but inside, they're whispering the opposite story. You cannot fool the subconscious mind. It hears what you truly believe, not what you pretend to say. I've watched it time and again. Someone declares, I am prosperous, while their entire being radiates the vibration of lack. Their voice carries doubt, their eyes dart nervously. Their body language screams poverty consciousness. And then they wonder why nothing changes. The universe doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your conviction. When you speak a word, you must feel it as already accomplished. You must claim it with the authority of one who already possesses it, not as a beggar hoping for scraps, but as a king acknowledging what is rightfully his. This is not pretending. This is not lying to yourself. This is recognizing the truth of the invisible realm before it manifests in the visible. Let me share something that happened with a woman who came to me drowning in debt, $15,000, a crushing weight on her shoulders. She'd been affirming prosperity for months with no results. Why? Because every time she said, I am prosperous, she immediately thought about the bills, calculated what she owed, and felt the familiar panic rise in her chest. Her words said one thing. Her consciousness believed another. So I taught her something different. I said, stop affirming what you want. Start giving thanks for what is already yours in the spiritual realm. She began to thank God for her immediate, complete financial freedom, not as something coming, but as something here, present tense, done. The shift was instant. Within 3 weeks, not months, the entire debt was cleared through channels so unexpected she couldn't have orchestrated them if she tried. What changed? Not her circumstances first. Her consciousness changed first. She stopped begging and started receiving. This is the distinction between prayer and treatment. Prayer often comes from lack. Please give me. Treatment comes from recognition. I accept what is already mine. Prayer says I need. Treatment says I have. When you pray from lack, you're actually affirming the lack. Every desperate plea tells the universe I don't have this thing. I'm separate from it. And the universe, always faithful to your word, responds with more lack. But when you speak the word of truth, when you declare what already exists in the spiritual realm, you set invisible forces into motion. I once worked with a woman whose business was failing. Every night she would pray, please save my business. Please bring me customers. Please don't let me lose everything. And every day business got worse. I told her, stop praying. Start declaring. Stop begging, I clarified. Start accepting. So instead of her desperate pleas, she began to speak these words. Infinite Spirit, I give thanks that my business is divinely guided and amply supplied. Every right customer comes to me at the perfect time. Success is mine by divine right. She began to speak it with conviction. Within 2 weeks, she received an unexpected contract that saved the entire operation. Nothing in the outer world had changed when she changed her words, but everything in the outer world changed because she changed her words. You see, the universe doesn't respond to your circumstances. It responds to your consciousness. If your consciousness is one of lack, poverty, and desperation, the universe says, yes, you're right. Here's more lack, more poverty, more desperation. If your consciousness is one of abundance, sufficiency, and divine supply, the universe says, yes, you're right. Here's more abundance, more sufficiency, more supply. This is why it is written. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Believe that you have received. Present tense, already done. This is the stance of spiritual treatment. This is speaking your word with authority. And when you stand in this consciousness, something remarkable happens. You stop chasing. You start attracting. You become a magnet for your good. Not because you forced anything, but because you've aligned with the divine pattern that was already there, waiting for your recognition. This is how divine design operates. Your good is not something you must hunt down and capture. It is something you allow, something you accept, something you welcome. And here's what most people don't understand. The universe responds not to your words, but to your consciousness. You can affirm abundance all day long. But if beneath those words lives a trembling fear of poverty, you're sending mixed signals. The subconscious always wins. Your subconscious mind is like rich soil. Whatever you plant there will grow. Plant fear, and you'll harvest circumstances that validate your fear. Plant faith, and you'll harvest miracles that confirm your faith. I once worked with a woman terrified of poverty. She was constantly imagining herself destitute, homeless, without provision. And every day seemed to bring fresh evidence of lack. Unexpected bills, lost opportunities, doors closing. She thought life was against her. But life wasn't against her. It was simply responding to the image she held in her mind. I said to her, you are the gardener of your own life. Stop planting these seeds of fear. Every time you imagine lack, you're planting another seed of poverty. She had never considered that her imagination was creative power, not just idle daydreaming. We began to work together. I taught her to plant different seeds. Instead of seeing herself without, she began to see herself as divinely provided for. Instead of imagining empty pockets, she imagined abundance flowing to her from expected and unexpected sources. It wasn't easy at first. Those old fear thoughts kept trying to creep back in like weeds. But she persisted. And within weeks, the external circumstances began to shift. A forgotten investment paid dividends. A relative remembered an old debt and repaid it. New opportunities appeared seemingly out of nowhere. She hadn't changed her circumstances through force or struggle. She had changed them through imagination. This is the secret the ancient teachers knew. Your imagination is not a passive receiver of images. It is an active projector casting your inner pictures onto the screen of your life. Whatever you consistently imagine with feeling, with faith, with the assumption of its reality, must come to pass. So I ask you now, what are you planting in the garden of your imagination? Because whatever it is, that's what you're going to harvest. If you're planting worry, criticism, and doubt, don't be surprised when your life reflects those things back to you. But if you begin to plant seeds of faith, gratitude, and vision, watch how quickly your outer world rearranges itself to match your inner garden. Let me tell you about a woman who came to me absolutely frantic. She'd been trying to sell her house for 2 years. Every potential buyer would come, look around, and then vanish. She was convinced the house was cursed, that the market was against her, that she'd never be free of it. I asked her one simple question. What do you say every time you walk through that house? She looked at me confused. Well, I say things like, nobody's ever going to buy this place, and I'm stuck here forever. And this house is my prison. There it was. She was speaking curses over her own property, declaring it unsellable with every breath. I told her, darling, you've got to bless that house. You've got to speak to it like it's already sold to the perfect buyer who will love and cherish it. She thought I was out of my mind, but she was desperate enough to try. Every morning she walked through that house and said, I bless this home. It is sold to the right person at the right price in the right time. I give thanks for the perfect buyer who is on their way to me now. 3 weeks later, A family pulled up who'd been driving through the neighborhood just looking. They walked in, fell in love, and made an offer that day. The sale went through without a single complication. Was that magic? No, it was law. She changed her vibration, and the universe had to respond. Your words are not just sounds you make. They're creative forces. They're instructions you're giving to the infinite intelligence that's always listening, always ready to bring you what you're claiming. This is why I'm so insistent about your language. Stop saying, I can't afford it. Say, I am open to receiving this or something better. Stop saying, I always get sick in winter. Say, I am divinely protected, and radiant health is my birthright. Stop saying, nobody loves me. Say, I am loved, lovable, and loving. Every word you speak is a seed planted in the garden of your future. And just as you wouldn't plant thistles and expect roses, you cannot speak lack and expect abundance. The invisible realm is incredibly literal. Takes you at your word every single time. When you say, I'm always broke, the universe says, your wish is my command, and arranges circumstances to match that decree. When you say, I never get what I want, you've just placed an order for more disappointment, and it will be delivered with absolute precision. But here's what thrills me. The moment you change your words, you change your destiny. The moment you begin speaking as though your good is already on its way, the invisible forces begin rearranging everything to match your new declaration. I had a student once who came to me in absolute financial despair. Every conversation was a litany of complaints about how unfair life was, how she could never get ahead, how money slipped through her fingers like water. I gave her one assignment, just one for 30 days. She was to stop speaking about her financial troubles entirely. Not to me, not to her friends, not even to herself in her own mind. Instead, every time she thought about money, she was to say, God is my instant and everlasting supply, and I give thanks that I am now receiving. That's it. Just that one affirmation, repeated with feeling, with conviction, as though it were already true. She protested. But I need to figure out how to pay my rent. I can't just pretend everything is fine. I smiled and said, I'm not asking you to pretend. I'm asking you to claim. There's a difference. Pretending is denial. Claiming is declaration. When you pretend, you're covering up what is. When you claim, you're calling forth what shall be. She asked. So I would claim my health even while I'm still feeling the symptoms? Especially while you're feeling the symptoms, I replied. That's when your claim has the most power. Anyone can praise God when the check arrives. The master praises God before the check is even written. This is what separates those who demonstrate the law from those who merely understand it intellectually. The understanding lives in the head. The demonstration lives in the declaration. I've watched people study this work for years, filling notebooks with affirmations, and yet their lives remained unchanged. Why? Because they were collecting information instead of making declarations. Your subconscious mind doesn't respond to what you know. It responds to what you claim is true. There was a man who came to me drowning in debt, barely able to feed his children. He had read every prosperity book. He could quote scripture and metaphysical principle perfectly, and yet he remained broke. I asked him, what do you claim? He rattled off a list of affirmations he had memorized. No, I said. What do you claim? Not what do you recite. What do you declare as your divine inheritance? He was silent. He had never claimed anything. He had only repeated words. I told him, tonight before you sleep, you will stand in your empty kitchen and you will claim plenty. You will look at your bare cupboards and declare them filled, not because you see the food, but because you claim the truth that God is your supply. The shift happened not in his words but in his authority. Within 2 weeks, an old business associate contacted him with an opportunity. Within a month, his kitchen was full. Within 3 months, his debts were cleared. What changed? Not the economy, not his circumstances. His claim changed, and the universe had no choice but to honor it. Your claim is your creative power in action. You see, most people live as if they're beggars in the universe, hoping for scraps, crossing their fingers, asking pretty please for what they want. But you're not a beggar. You never were. You're the heir to the kingdom. The difference between a beggar and an heir is simple. A beggar asks. An heir claims. When you claim something, you're not demanding it from a reluctant universe. You're announcing what already belongs to you in the invisible. You're taking your rightful place. You're saying, "This is mine by divine right, and I now accept it in manifestation." Think of it this way. Imagine you've inherited a fortune, but it's sitting in a bank under your name. The money is legally yours. But if you never walk into that bank and claim it, if you never sign the papers and make the withdrawal, that money might as well not exist. You're walking around broke while your fortune waits for you. That's how most people live. They have infinite supply waiting for them in the invisible. Riches beyond measure, solutions to every problem, healing for every hurt, but they never claim it. They stand outside the bank of the universe hoping someone will throw them a coin. I'm telling you, walk into that bank. Sign your name. Claim what's yours. And here's what will surprise you. The universe has been waiting for you to do exactly that. It's been holding your good, keeping it safe, wondering when you'd finally show up and take possession. The universe isn't withholding anything from you. You've been withholding yourself from it. So what does a true claim sound like? Not a wish, not a hope, not a plea. A claim is definite, decisive, done. I am now receiving. Not, I hope to receive someday. My perfect work manifests now. Not, maybe I'll find something eventually. I am guided, guarded, and protected. Not, I hope nothing bad happens. Do you feel the difference? One is the voice of someone who knows who they are. The other is the voice of someone still asking permission to exist.